Hey, Mike.
Hey, Kev, how are you? Hey, everyone out there. Thank you for watching this. What you're seeing now is going to be it's the first part of a series. Kev and I are going to have discussions on Kev's concept of Platonic Surrealism. So maybe we'll just dive right into it and you'll learn more about both of us as we converse through this. So, Kev, how are you doing? May I call you Kev in this informal way in this recorded session?
All my friends call me Kev, so most people call me Kev.
There's usually a joke like that, but yes, thank you.
Yeah. But you are a friend. You're a dear man. You're a good person. You're an author. I'm I'm privileged to have you as a friend.
Wow, Kev, I feel very much the same way, really. And our
Thank you. Okay, let's.
our chats and emails are it's like drinking from Bacchus wine. So thank you.
Ooh.
Well, I'm feeling woozy right now.
Hey, the Bacchians were banished and punished by Rome because they caused the disruption.
I'm not
So
surprised.
yeah. Any good idea will disrupt the order of things. So let's get to it.
Yeah.
So Platonic Surrealism. Well, let me just a little bit about me first for people who don't know me. Um, I'm best known as Jeffrey J. Kreipel's co-author for the book How to Think Impossibly, and I'm the guy that he interviewed for chapter 3, and I deluged him with a lot of papers after he did that. I've deluged him with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of papers, and they've gone into the archives of the impossible. It's a real honor that he wants to store them there. So
And if I may
that's a book.
interject, Kev, and the way we met is I kind of wrote a review of the book, and then I went to Jeff was teaching an online class in his book How to Think Impossibly, which I joined, and Kev got on the call and said, "You're Mike Fiorito. You're the guy that wrote." And I actually didn't know who you were at that moment until then. It all came together because in the book you're just Kevin. So it was a great way to kind of uh, it was a great way to meet in a way serendipitously, unplanned.
Well, I think it shows that a little kindness, a little respect, a little paying attention to what other people say and want opens doors. I go, hey,
Mhm,
this guy, he's really appreciating this book.
mhm,
So could I put a smile on his face? What
mhm.
could he possibly learn something, or could I learn something from him? We seem to be on a similar wavelength, and we'd never become friends if I hadn't it lit up inside with the mere thought of becoming friends with you. So I'm
Yeah,
glad it happened. It's wonderful.
it's a synchronicity, really.
Yep. So Platonic Surrealism, in a way, I've been writing it for 63 years. I'm 63 years old. I was aware in the womb. And now I'm not saying, oh, I was some great spiritual being. I mean, we're all great spiritual beings, okay? That's one of the primary things about Platonic Surrealism. It's a flat system, meaning you don't have high muckety mucks that tell you how to live your life. Everyone's an equal. Now, some people are, like particularly handsome and charming like you. Other
Mhm.
people are, really glib or a subject matter expert on something. We've all got something to contribute. And this Platonic Surrealism is something that I wish to share notes on with other people so that they can further enhance it, critique it, show where there might be something wrong. Though, frankly, I've got it written up where it's almost logically impossible to defeat it. Um, yeah, that's a challenge to any philosophers that want to come argue. I love philosophers. As you might imagine, Platonic surrealism. The name is based upon, of course, Plato, who was a real great that influenced our world in so many ways. Aristotle and Plato. Now, Plato had idealistic forms, such as there's a perfect triangle out there, and in this world, we can never get, a real representation of that perfect triangle. But he was about perfection. And frankly, Plato influenced Christianity and other faiths and spiritual paths, and it evolved into a big steaming mess, in my view. because it led to dualism. There's the ideal forms, the heavenly worlds, and then there's the imperfect worlds down here. And then the perfect worlds became evil, and it all just went to hell. So I feel a real compulsion to fix that if possible. Now, that's quite a tall order, but I want to put things back on the track it originally was. That, okay, the word surrealism. Surrealism is a reference to like dreamlike, not rational, maybe fragmentary. And that's a reference to how, if there are Platonic ideal forms out there, there's also Platonic not ideal forms out there. See, it's the messy part of life that Plato kind of shoved off to the side. And because we shove off things to the side, we've wrecked our world. Honestly, because, if one man's vision is perfect, then anyone who disagrees is evil, and we're in an evil world. Well, no, that's not the world as it actually exists. That's the world that men have created.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that, by the way, because the surrealism part wasn't completely clear to me, and so thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
So another metaphor here would be simulation theory. For example, like Nick Bostrom is a philosopher, and he wrote about ancestor simulations. And increasingly, simulation theories like God for atheists in a way, because, a God worshiper may say, well, you're saying that there's some super race of aliens or something out there, and they've got a fantasy world and we're living in it. Well, I've got God, and that's what he does. And he's the best simulator because he's the creator. So, and, it goes back to Brain in a Vat, Voltaire, I believe it was, the French philosopher, or Italian, Voltaire, French, I guess.
French.
So, yeah, the concept
Otherwise,
that
it would be a Neapolitan surrealism, which would take us down a different road completely.
Yeah, it makes you want ice cream too. So the problem with the simulation hypothesis is that it answers a lot of things, but then it sticks you into that nasty dualism again, because then you wonder, well, am I in the real physical world, or am I in a simulation? And it gets all nasty and crazy. And then, people go, oh, are we in some hell world ruled by the demiurge? If you want to go into Gnostic Christianity or early Platonicism, the demiurge was like a creator god, but kind of an evil one. At first, he wasn't evil. He was just a workman that created a universe for higher gods. But then later, he became evil. And then in the Bible, he became, the evil king of the world sort of thing. So the concept just went to hell, literally went to hell. So Platonic Surrealism fixes that, because in Platonic Surrealism, there is no physical world. Everything is a simulation, so to speak. But there is no base physical world. That's why in Platonic Surrealism, we talk about everything being ontologically equivalent and reality not having a preference. There is no preferred state in reality. So let me get to the very, very basics.
If I can ask a question before you go onto that, would you say that consciousness is the foundation for all existence? Is that
No.
Okay?
Nope. We'll get to that. And that's where I go into circles with people like my good friend Jeff Kripal. There's this thing about making consciousness primary. And it's a great argument, like Bernardo Castro. The guy's a genius, okay? I recognize genius, and whenever I see it, I point it out. Plato was a genius. Bernardo Castro's a genius. Jeff is a genius in his own way of service and opening doors for people. And he has his share of bright ideas. So he's right up there too. A lot of geniuses in the world. But here, Jeff and I and others sometimes go roundy. Some people are consensus builders. They want us to all be in consensus, some sort of perennial wisdom that everything is mine. Well, no, it isn't actually. I'm a rebel bad boy in that regard with Platonic Surrealism. Because here's what Platonic Surrealism says. You can think of it, and I was originally going to get a piece of paper and draw some really bad diagrams on it. Maybe we'll do that sometime. But consider a giant sphere, and the sphere contains all potential possibilities and all potential interactions that could happen between those potential possibilities. I call that potentiality, and I scream it with all caps. That's the primary thing that exists and doesn't exist. I'll get to it. So, and then there's awareness. And awareness is simply one type of property and interaction. It's a self-reflective loop. I call it a one-bit difference with potentiality. Potentiality is everything that could happen and does happen, the potential for everything that could happen. At any time, any place, any number of copies of it. And awareness is an essential part of it, because awareness is associational. It goes, okay, this property is part of this train of awareness, and this property is perceived by awareness. And so you've got potentiality and awareness are the highest order things. And a philosopher would say it's eternalism. So potentiality and awareness are eternalism.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
if I may
please.
ask a question, and I know you hate certain words, but for the purposes of simplicity, would you say that what people refer to with a small e is awareness similar to enlightenment? Is it in kind of common parlance in what we talk about? And I know you hate that word. I'm not the biggest fan of it either. Or is that just completely misleading?
Enlightenment is a mental disorder. But yeah, I think there's somebody out there I haven't picked a fight with yet. I haven't met him, but if I do find such a person, I'll probably pick a fight with him too. But
a few people come to mind.
Yeah. So Platonic Surrealism uses the term wholeness or alignment. But so if you want to get down and dirty, when I say that Platonic Surrealism doesn't use certain words, like it doesn't really use the word God, doesn't really use the word soul, doesn't really use the word enlightenment, but it addresses all those things carefully, methodically, and with possible even proof and evidence for some of these things. It takes it all very seriously, but these are misperceptions. But yes, indeed, if your left brain hemisphere, your right brain hemisphere, and what's called in the enteric nervous system, the nerves in the gut and intestines, which are 20% of all neurons in the body, if those come into some sort of alignment and you realize that you are awareness itself, when you do practices or circumstances cause it, like trauma can cause it, various things. Some people were just born where awareness just beams into them and they can follow it back as far as it goes. So if you're in this alignment and you're living as awareness and awareness crosses all worlds, all times, all beings, all possibilities. Anything that's matter or energy is really just awareness kibitzing with potentiality and causing reflections that are then interpreted to be consciousness or soul or God. Now, some of these temporary forms are valuable and they can live for trillions and trillions and trillions of years. For example, Platonic Surrealism has a concept of something called a monad, a primary unit of awareness. And Leibniz, the guy who helped invent calculus had monads, and I really haven't read about it. What I tend to do is I just use my intuition, pull out of the void, so to speak, and talk about things that I don't know about, and then later find out I was right and people have been agreeing with me for thousands of years. It's my creative process. But consider a monad is the tiniest fraction of difference between the cloud of potentiality of all things being possible all at once and making a single choice to exist, to be different from all that, to exist independently, to go, I perceive I. The thing that goes, I perceive I, that is a monad. And monads stream these streams of awareness to all living sentient things. They want to interact and to play and get into group activities. And I'm not suggesting, and this is very dangerous actually, I'm not suggesting that a monad is God or a godling. So the power of a monad is just freaking off the charts. They can form a universe. In fact, that's how, from what I've noticed, is how it happens. A monad will go, I'm going to sacrifice my self-expression in such a way and limit myself to make a palette that others can then, other monads, other streams of awareness filtering through other monads can interact and learn and play. Now, I know that sounds awfully theistic, and Platonic Surrealism isn't really theistic. Our brains as humans tend to want to anthropomorphize things. So I have trouble, could you discuss this all as physics? Yes. Are there Boltzmann brains out there? And I'm not going to go into all this physics stuff about Boltzmann brains, but you might compare Boltzmann brains and monads as being basically the same sort of thing. I guess in short, the Boltzmann brain argument is in physics that, due to quantum mechanics, anything in the universe could probably happen once, but maybe only once in the universe. So the thought was from Boltzmann, whoever came up with it, get an entire brain just poof into existence like a virtual particle. In quantum mechanics, you've got virtual particles that exist and then stop existing. They're real particles while they exist, and then they go back to not existing. So could a whole brain just poof into existence? And most physicists say, yeah, probably. But so what? It'd be a brain. It'd be like made out of, nothing special. It would die in the vacuum of space. So what? But what if you had an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters all at once? Would they produce Shakespeare? And the answer is yes, they would. So you can consider, if you're a science type, and I was a nuclear engineer for 7 years. I'm a science type too. I honor both the rational and the quote irrational, the creative and the supposedly subjective. In the field of atemporal potentiality, it's not possible, that once in the universe a Boltzmann brain forms. It's mandatory because that is a set of potentials and interactions. And in potentiality, actually nothing really happens in potentiality because it's potential to happen. But right on the edge of it, you put the tiniest gradient on it, the tiniest bit of stress now, and then you pop out a monad. It's one logical bit different. In Platonic Surrealism, matter, energy, mind, spirit, these things are considered just appearances because in Platonic Surrealism, there's only information and the potential for information and causal connections between information. And for purposes of Platonic Surrealism, is considered to have no substrate, meaning there is no physical world anywhere. There is no base reality. Everything is ontologically equivalent. And so you need a little bit of a disturbance in the force, so to speak. And I've often wondered, what caused the first disturbance? It caused the first bit difference in potentiality. I just know, and yeah, okay, go get the butterfly nets and the I love me jackets, but I have a memory of suddenly existing because a stress, an irritant, irritated me somehow. And then I existed. I think I remember my you see, we don't have one-on-one monads generally. Monads could power 1,000 people. You know how you walk into like a bookstore? Like say in the old days, they had these metaphysical new age bookstores. And sometimes you'd walk in there and you wouldn't feel nothing. But other times it was like the sun rising on the shoulders of the person who was working there. I've experienced that. I don't know if you have.
I have. I miss those stores with the sections, with the metaphysical sections.
Right. So that person is powered by the same monad as you. And that's why you feel that. That's sometimes why people see UFOs one way and not another. See, every group of monads sees things differently, interacts differently.
If I can
And
stop you there, Kev, but
yeah,
so when you say that these things, and this is just for people who are listening, how do you know that we may I may walk into a store and meet someone we're composed of the same monads.
oh, I always felt this excitable, like little kid excited Christmas morning feeling, golden glow enveloping me. And then I would even somewhat know their thoughts and they would know mine, and we felt bonded.
Mm.
And that's just with a stranger on the street.
Mm-hmm.
People usually don't feel that much for their quote soulmate, you know, but we're all soulmates here. That's also a concept in Platonic Surrealism, though a more recent one, actually. Um, there's in the field of all potentials and all worlds and all times, which are all happening at once. I rather like the block universe in physics. That's a concept that I also like. Um, there's all these variations of us. And, in one world, you're a king. In another world, you're in the gutter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's the multiverse business. And for example, Jeff Capaldi utterly hates it because you can hand wave away a lot of things with it that have meaning and value and give purpose. But in Platonic Surrealism, there is no negative for that view. But I just want to say, in potentiality space, there's a big cutout of human and human-like beings and worlds. It's a potential cluster. So the cluster itself seems to be gaining some cohesive awareness of what it is. And I'd say it's reaching out to humans. You could call it a group soul if you want to, but see, that word soul is just so nasty. You can write a whole book on it. In fact, I'm reading a book by a very scholarly person on the topic. Excellent author. He'll remain unattributed for the most. But so Platonic Surrealism does recognize a group self. That's like every potential variety of human. And from all the worlds, all the possibilities, gaining a cohesive awareness of itself. And Platonic Surrealism says this is what is actually happening when people postulate that like UFOs and aliens are humans from the future. No, not in that sense. They don't have to be. They're humans in the cluster, in the potentiality cluster, reaching out to each other. For example, another key concept of Platonic Surrealism is that in many ways, we're the unconscious mind for something larger than us. And that's why it's so surrealistic. You see, why, like Marian apparitions and UFOs and all this stuff is so chaotic. Because you've got near infinite numbers of monads all dreaming together, all trying to work together from multiple worlds, all trying to look for any opportunity to express their desire, to learn, to grow in the way that they want to. So it's all happening at once. So no wonder. I mean, for example, in ufology, there's like a trillion different kinds of spaceships and they all crash in the United States and give their technology to us. No, 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 no. That is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. And that's actually why in how Platonic Surrealism kind of gained its final form. Because back in 2013, I was disgusted with every spiritual system in the world, every religious system in the world. And let's call it I was prompted to get into ufology because I thought if I did, there'd be a clue I could find that would explain everything I was missing. So I was in ufology for like, oh no, maybe 5 years. And I suddenly had a wild hair. Well, I know what UFOs are. I'm going to prove it to myself. I'm going to summon one. It's going to show up and it's going to be right in my face. It'll be undeniable. And if that works, then I know I'm close to being on track. So
You know what, Kev?
that's
I think that's a great place right there. Maybe to pause and to where we could pick that up, because I think that would be something, I know this story, but I think this is a very key piece to your vision and what you're trying to lay out here. If that's okay
okay. I
with
like
you.
that.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. I would just like
I-
to add one more comment to that. No, this is important for
yeah.
as a bridge. So yes, the UFO quote UFO showed up, and even though I thought I knew a lot about it, and it turns out I did know a lot about it, there was a lot I didn't know too. It was a great learning experience, but it shattered my mind. It shattered my body. The
Mm.
ontological shock was off the scale. I can't tell you. I mean, you can say you believe in God or angels or demons, but when one shows up and goes tap, tap, tap physically on your shoulder, you go, what? So I was destroyed.
Mm.
So Platonic Surrealism is what finished coming out so that it could heal me, so I could understand what had happened, how to deal with it, how to make sense of it, how to heal myself, how to become strong again. That's where Platonic Surrealism came from. So that's a good stopping point, I guess. There was a
Yeah.
need for it.
Just because, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think we've laid the ground for follow-on sessions where we can go into that in great detail. I was tempted to sing "If I Only Had a Brain," but I did resist um, while you were uh, laying out your ideas. But I think that was great. So if we can say until next time, Mike and Kev will be back to chat our way into your hearts and brains, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, my friend.